Welcome everybody to the podcast Everything But Music, where we discuss major questions, hosted by yours truly. Hope you enjoy.
To hear that, it's like, oh, I'm too old to understand this.
I am so excited and happy to have you on this very first episode of my podcast. Hi,
I am so excited for you to have me on your podcast.
So, I mean, people who follow my life know the people that I surround myself with. But for those two people, maybe in the audience, who don't know who you are, who are you?
Well, my name is Fred. I was born in China, and I'm an architect.
That's amazing. Hey, you're not on the 3 minutes with. So haven't you been my first guest on the 3 minutes with?
We did that fucking weird interview.
Seems like every single time I come across with new ideas, you're my test bunny.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, God.
Okay. So this whole thing is just going to be us
start.
laughing.
Okay.
All right. So I hate talking about myself like this. All right. So I am Ronald. Last name Thal. Nickname Blumenthal was the name of my band, and it just became a nickname. So I always kind of throw it in there. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Some people just call me Ron Thal. Some people call me Bumblefoot. Some people call me Ron Bumblefoot. Some people call me Mr. Bumble. Some people call me Bumble. Some people call me Ronald.
Okay.
And I am a solo artist. Sing, write, play guitar. I'm predominantly guitar playing and some singing. And I've played in a bunch of bands. I did 8 years of time with Guns N' Roses, and I've played with the band and sung with the band Asia, and guitarist for the band Sons of Apollo. And
That's all the time we have, so thank you very much for being on my
It has
podcast.
been a pleasure, yes. And I am a hot sauce fanatic, and I have a line of hot sauces.
Nice. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being on this podcast, and I really value you in my life. Like I'm really thankful and grateful to have you in my life as a good friend and somebody that I feel has a lot of things in common with me. I feel like we can talk about everything as friends, and that's a very, very big support for me in my life when I have, the dark days or something is going on. And I feel like we definitely connect in a lot of things, not to be too specific. But how did we connect? Like, why? Please feel free to tell the people, why do we know each other?
We've had a million mutual friends over the years, and finally, at the worst day of NAMM I ever had, as I was running to try and replace a stolen badge that was screwing up my entire schedule, where I wasn't going to be able to have all my meetings, and I didn't even want to be at NAMM, and I was only there because I flew out to be part of a drum recording that I was then told, oh, we're just going to do it ourselves, and I flew out for nothing, and then still did this NAMM thing, and I was just so fucking pissed off. And as I was about to run and go wait on a 2-hour line to try and get a new badge, I get stopped at the door, and it's like, hey, how would you like to be? And I just knew you were going to say, do an interview. And at that point, I was kind of going through this whole thing of kind of regaining control of my life and not having it belong to the rest of the world. And part of that was, I'm not doing any more interviews. I'm not sharing myself with everybody. I'm shutting my doors and taking care of me for a while, something I didn't do for a damn long time,
Right.
if not forever. And so I remember just saying, if you want me to do an interview, the answer is no. I'm not doing interviews. I don't do interviews. I'm not doing it. And he said, oh, come on, it'll be fun. And I just popped like a balloon. I was like, fun? Nothing about this is fucking fun. And I just exploded about NAMM. But you took I was yelling, but I didn't mean to yell at you. Like I wasn't like, but of course, like the first time people meet, and it was just, yeah. So then afterwards, I was like, oh, I feel so bad that I like exploded on her. And our mutual friend, my drummer extraordinaire, Kyle Hughes, incredible drummer.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he did my entire new solo album I'm working on, except for one song. I had my friend Jerry from King's X. He played drums on one song, but otherwise the whole thing is Kyle. You know, he's a mutual friend, and I told him about it. I was like, I feel so bad. I was like, oh no, I talked to her. She's fine. She gets it. She's totally cool. Little did I know that you spent 14 months thinking I'm the biggest asshole in the world.
Well, I remember that day, and the big thing was that everybody of our mutual friends said, oh my God, Ron is such a sweetheart. After that happened, I stood there and I was just like I was made of questions. and I remember that you've been doing a live stream talk thing, something.
Yeah, it was the guy was like, oh, there's someone here that, you know. Yeah, well, you tell the story. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, he told me, yeah, well, I'm going to have Jeff Scott Soto over at my interview podcast video thing. And I said, yay. And then he said, I'm going to have Billy Sheehan. And I'm like, oh, yay. And then he mentioned you. And my reaction was, of course, because I didn't know better. I just had these few seconds of how we bumped into each other. And I was like, okay. And then he was so like everybody. He was like, how can you not love him? He is such a fantastic human being. And how can you not love Ron? And I said, well, so I told him the story. And I remember he immediately suggested, oh, I got to bring that up. And I said, you cannot bring this up while they are having an interview. Like, don't. And he said, yeah, I'm going to bring that up. And it was so funny how he kind of sneaked my name into the whole conversation. He's like, hey, Jeff, maybe you know Jen? And Billy's like, yeah, I know her. She's a friend. And then this whole thing was brought to the table. And I laughed so hard, honestly.
Well, yeah, I remember when he said your name, I was like, finally, I have a chance to, like, personally, like, say something to you. Because, you know, like, I figured everything was okay, but it's still something that always bothered me that I
didn't listen to Sons of Apollo for 15 months.
Well, I haven't listened to them for 5 years.
There's a weird thing with me when I get to know people and there's something off with those people. I don't know. I translate it to the music, even though the music is fantastic and I still think super highly of the written music. But I just couldn't bring myself to listen to Sons of Apollo.
That's normal.
Right?
Like if you meet someone, you have a bad experience, the music is going to remind you of that experience. And
exactly.
In the other way, if it was a great experience, the music is going to remind you of that, and you're going to feel so just elated even more every time you hear the music.
That's true.
So
That's true.
It's very normal. Like, you know, you meet the person when it becomes an extension of the personal interaction that you had.
Totally.
So,
and
yeah,
afterwards, I was like, okay, let's hit the reset button.
He said your name, and as soon as he said your name, I remember I just jumped up and I was like, I am so sorry. And I started explaining it all. I was like, I know Kyle said that everything was okay, but still I want to apologize to you. And I'm so, yeah. And then here we are.
And then the result is actually one extraordinary, beautiful friendship. And I am very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Ron, I don't know how to do this podcast thing. This is my very, very first attempt ever. And I'm a little bit nervous in a good way, And I don't know. Do you have any like podcasts you listen to? Is that something people do nowadays? Is that normal? I don't know.
Yeah, people are always listening to podcasts, but you know how musicians are. We don't have time because our ears are always busy. Either we're working, especially people, studio people, because you're constantly either, you're working on a mix or you're recording something, or you're writing something. Your ears are constantly busy. So when you have downtime, the last
you want quiet
is take in more sound. Like you just need to like shut your ears off and let them rest and let your brain rest. Let that part of your mind just recharge its batteries.
Don't you make a difference in between listening to audio in terms of like music or talking? Like spoken language is so relaxing to me.
Yeah.
Right? So a
It
podcast,
is
from my
different.
understanding, is mainly like talking. It's more like an audio book, talking, listening to, instead of like listening to a full mastered, mixed, whatever song, musical content.
It's something different for the brain for sure, but the ears themselves just feel fatigued. Like it feels like you've just used that road too much, and you need to just give it a rest. It's almost like your ears start feeling just sore in a way.
Or the brain, I mean.
Yeah, it's really the brain, but
Right?
yeah, the brain is like, shut off your ears, stop it.
So,
it's like part of your brain is tired.
I mean, it's kind of interesting with this whole podcast idea that is called Everything But Music, because I don't know about you, but I am so tired of interview questions. I feel like there's
When did
only
you start
so many
playing guitar?
Exactly. It's like there's only so many questions one can ask, and I get that every interview partner would like to have like a short introduction, who are you? When did you start playing the guitar? What kind of gear do you use?
And in
But
your
it's so
case, it's
tiring.
always that like misogynistic bullshit, that overtone of, so what's it like being a girl that plays guitar? It's like, it's
Yes.
so
It's what's it like to be a female
idiotic.
guitar player?
Or what's it like to have 2 feet? I mean,
So
keep it up already.
exactly. Exactly. And so
Women
the
have been
thing is,
playing guitar for as long as there's been guitars, from Elizabeth Cotton on, and it's like, if you don't know that, and if you if you feel that the gender is such a big issue, then go sit around naked playing a drum in the woods with your men friends, and join the He-Man Woman Haters Club and pull your dicks together. I mean, I don't know what to say.
totally.
Like,
I
fuck over
totally
it
get
already.
that people
Yeah.
would find interest in that question, but then it's so dumb. It's just so dumb to ask that. And I repetitively keep saying, like, that, I believe we as humans come to a point in the history of the humankind that we should acknowledge the fact that gender doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter whether you're female, you're male, what your sexual orientation is, if you're
I
transgender.
identify, yeah. So whether you're that too, like, it doesn't, at this point, like in this day and age, it's like, get the fuck over it already. And the funny thing is that just by asking that question, it's almost
Offensive.
like that. It's almost like saying, well, that's what it's like to be a woman who plays guitar. You get asked these questions that are just don't need to
redundant.
be really.
Yeah.
There's just nothing to say. Well, I pee like everybody else, and just usually not standing up, and then I put on my guitar. And,
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say?
So for this podcast, I talked to you before, prior to this recording, but I said, man, it would be great to have a topic non-music related, but it always sneaks in. I mean, we are musicians, so of course it always sneaks in. But I suggested to you to talk about, and this is a very broad topic, I know, the humankind.
Or the human unkind.
The human unkind. So let me ask you this. I mean, we've all sat together in this pandemic situation, and it was something new. And I truly believe everybody learned something during that time of isolation and dealing with new technologies, and more like ever before relying on your screen and your internet connection and stuff like that. What do you think has changed in us humans during the pandemic, and what maybe have we learned to benefit from now that apparently things are getting better?
Well, I guess the first thing is that we haven't changed. We're still the same bunch of idiotic apes
Dumbasses
that we always were. We're frightened little creatures that cling to the edges of things and seek safety in numbers, and which leads to manipulation, that leads to division, and it's an easy time to do that when the world is destabilized and afraid. So what do we learn? Nothing. We haven't learned a damn thing. Like our technology.
That's disappointing.
No, well, actually, it is and it isn't, because we can use that. We can use that acceptance that we can try and improve ourselves and realize that we are still these primal, that's the word I'm looking for. We can,
Monkeys.
well, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
We're primal creatures, and we need to work on our primal selves and not be so reactive, and to think before we react, and to just, yeah, every one of us is a work in progress.
Absolutely.
We're born, we get the shit kicked out of us, and then we have to do the work to try and not let it change us for the worst.
Let me ask you a little bit different. What kind of maybe new appreciation did you learn from that pandemic? I mean, if I speak for myself, for example, I sat there in my little apartment, and I really started by now appreciating talking, and maybe that sounds stupid, but even focusing more on spoken words than actually like just hanging out and wasting your time, not wasting, but hanging out without too much meaning. You know what I mean? It's like
Sure.
The pandemic really brought people to my life because we were only capable of speaking. So you put way more attention to the spoken word. I feel like that has changed, at least for me in my case. And I right now absolutely appreciate the fact to socialize when I like to socialize. I do not appreciate the fact when I have to socialize and come across like, hey, everything is cool. And this is terrible. But we all know that this is the alter ego persona that you can put on when it's needed, right?
Sure.
But what is maybe new appreciation for you after knowing what we know now after the pandemic situation for 2 years?
Well, it was an unexpected change for everybody, and it was an opportunity where we got to reassess so many things. We were given the gift of time, along with everything that was taken from us. And it was a chance to use that gift however we chose.
In my case, it started like a blessing. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like being on a vacation. And then it turned into this curse, because I truly believe a giant amount. I don't want to
be on vacation this long.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
It's everybody was like laughing and turning this situation into let's see how this works out. But honestly, for me, and I only speak from my personal experience, I really had issues. Like, and I truly believe a lot of people had health issues, like mental health issues during this time, from being isolated so hardcore, like missing the actual life, like contact with humans.
Isolation is not healthy for the brain, the hippocampus, for a lot of things in the brain, and it does permanently change people. Too much isolation. So yeah, it was a test. It was a test of people. But the thing is, we were not completely isolated. We really weren't. I mean, if we were going to be in any pandemic, we are so damn lucky we're in this one, where we had internet connection, just communication technology, I should say. We had that. We had news. Even though a whole lot of it were bullshit news.
Entertainment. That's what you're trying to say.
Angertainment. And yeah, I mean, just that alone. Because there's been so many pandemics throughout history. I mean, hell.
True.
Going back for as long as history has been recorded.
I mean, just think back to the Spanish flu. I mean, stick a human monkey breed personality right back into the Spanish flu pandemic. I don't know. Even I wouldn't know how to do that. There was no internet. There was no connection. There was just horrible. What do you think? What do you think? You know how people always say like, oh, back in the days when I was a child, years ago, things were better. I try to like put myself into the shoes of a young person, let's say a young teen, who grew up and got hit like everybody else with this pandemic and the rules and the isolation. And what do you think does that do to a young, impressionable brain that is just growing and learning? I mean, normal teenagers, they go out, they try to, check out limits and stuff. And that's what teenagers do. I don't speak of me necessarily or you as a teenager, because I truly believe we've been different. But the average teenager is the one that checks out, like, what's it like to smoke cigarettes? What's it like to break the law? And testing
life and
testing boundaries. That's what you do as a teenager, because that defines your character and your human being that you will become as a grown-up, mature person.
Yes.
But what is it? Can you try to understand what's it like for a teenager to grow up and then have this pandemic hit your teenage years? It's hard. I feel like that is going to be a generation that is challenged in so many ways.
Oh, I remember when I was going to school, and we're talking the 70s, there was this one teacher that everyone was like, oh God, I hope I don't get him. A third grade teacher named Mr. Pace, because he was known for smacking the kids and pulling their hair. And in the 70s, that was life. What people don't realize that every preceding generation was a fuck of a lot tougher and dealt with a lot of shit, going back to pioneers on the new frontier, battling, there were no paved roads. I mean, whatever, I'm babbling. But seriously, it's like 100 years ago, people were 10 times tougher than we are now. And they had to be to survive. These days, it's much easier to survive. There's way more comforts, and people don't have to be as tough. So back then, I remember there was that teacher, and I remember this one class that had that teacher, and a lot of them just came out as bullies. And then I remember there was another one where the teacher just she had a meltdown, and she just really didn't teach for the whole year. And everyone that had it was a 7th grade teacher. The kids just ran like animals around the class, just throwing things for a year. When they got to the next grade, they were so far behind in just discipline, development, everything. And it had such a really tough effect on people. So I don't know how this isolation is going to affect people in their development. But yeah, I mean, everybody is going to have a challenge that we are going to have to work on as individuals, which goes back to what we started saying before.
Totally.
That we are all work in progress, and life beats the shit out of us, and then we have to spend our time cleaning up the mess.
Figuring it out, how to become a better person. Totally.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is, as a human, is to learn from your mistakes. Don't repeat your mistakes. If you do a mistake, learn from it and become a better version of yourself, and try to do that every day, right?
And also don't repeat other people's mistakes, which is even tougher. If someone does something bad to you, don't do that same bad thing to someone else. Like,
Totally.
Don't let that become the way you do things.
Right, totally, I agree. So why is it that humans mostly pick on negative stuff?
Going back to that primal survival thing. When something is negative, we're like, all right, keep far away from that. It makes a very strong imprint because we need to keep away from it. Safety, if a dog bites you, you're not going to run and pet every dog you see right after that. like your brain imprints, and like you tell yourself, okay, don't pet dogs, you'll get bit. You can get bit, you might get bit, and you
Right.
become cautious. So if that's what you mean, what do you mean by that?
I mean it even on a even easier understanding. For example, I was born in the south of Germany, and I moved away like over 10 years ago. I'm living in the north of Germany now, and the mentality here is very different compared to the southern mentality. Not making any comparisons, no. But the thing is, I realize, for example, when you ask a random person, and this might be a cultural thing in Europe/Germany, because I don't feel Americans are like that. But when I, for example, ask my mom, this is a horrible example, but if I just ask a random person or a beloved family member and just say, hey, how you doing? The answer most of the time includes something, yeah, well, I'm not dead yet. And I think to myself, why would this be your generated automatic answer? Like, what's so hard about feeling happy for somebody or letting people know that you actually feel okay, which is finding the good in you've got the option of like picking A, I feel nothing special, I don't feel great, I don't feel shit, so I'm like, I'm okay. Or option B, I don't feel great, I don't feel like shit, but I'm still breathing, I'm not dead. Why is it that humans like to pick on negativity? I don't understand this, because this is a work in progress, and again, like you just said, it's a work in progress with us humans trying to like figure it out. And
let's explore a couple of possibilities that could lead to that. First, they might have seen some Monty Python. They're like, I'm not dead yet.
No, totally don't know what you're talking about. Absolutely not.
I'm doing fine. I'm getting better. Okay. Bring out your dead. So, all right. Well, I'm going to propose a couple of possibilities that would make someone respond negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's something that someone said to me years ago that really stuck with me. It's like, yeah, your friends will be there for you when things are going bad, but a real friend, a true friend, will be there for you when things are going good and things are going well.
Yeah.
So, in other words, if you say, "Oh, I'm doing great, I'm doing this, I'm doing that," the person in West might actually feel like you're bragging, or it's a challenge. Hey, you're doing better than me. I need to try and fuck that up for you. Or, I mean, that's one possibility. So people don't show what's going well so that nobody can ruin it for them. That's one.
Isn't that stupid?
Of course it's stupid, but we're a bunch of primal apes.
Okay.
Yeah. And people are too competitive, and they haven't done the work on themselves to not be that way and to truly be happy for someone else and not make it about themselves. So that's one. I'm just naming random possibilities here.
Mm-hmm.
The other is that they are so inundated by social media with negative stuff that it just changed the way they think, and they view things in a darker light, and they're now trained to just immediately see the dark side of things more than the light, because that's what a lot of news and social media, it scares people, and fear is the biggest motivator. People reading, it gets people reacting, and it's used and abused by other people to manipulate the masses.
I would agree that definitely the topic social media, and you can find like countless documentaries about that, how social media affects the human brain. I mean, we all know these people who post too much. It's like, I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm enjoying my number 2. You know, you
I was
stop
just
posting.
thinking the same thing, and I didn't say it. I was thinking to myself, and I stopped myself from saying it. It's like, hey, I'm taking a shit. Here's a story. Hey, just wipe my ass.
Totally. And it's horrible. We all know these people that are so desperate for attention and so sad in a way. Like they feel like this is the approval they need in their life to I don't know.
Yeah, like we very often will take our value and put it on something else. Like a lot of musicians, they play live. If there's a ton of people at the show, they feel successful. If a lot of people didn't go to that show, they feel like a failure.
Exactly.
And it's the same with social media, where if you do a post and you get a lot of engagement and likes, and then you feel like you're successful. And if you don't, you feel like you've failed. And it's this constant, just monster that you keep having to feed, when the truth is, success and failure are really
within yourself.
Yeah, success could mean I managed to avoid fame but still make music. Like someone could say that
Absolutely.
Is success.
Yeah, totally.
They don't have trappings of fame and stalkers and losing freedom because there's people hiding with cameras by their windows and whatever it is.
Have you ever had to deal with stalkers?
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, another thing could be, I managed to teach for 20 years at this little place where, like, I've seen a bunch of my students go on to do great things. This one became a Grammy-winning producer. This one is a great artist making this incredible music. This one is writing these beautiful classical compositions that are used in movies.
Do you have students like that?
I do.
What does it make you feel like when you see them? I mean, I have one girl particular in mind right now, and she's doing so great, and she's fantastic, and she's like growing and learning and becoming better and better, and it's so lovely to see her grow and bloom. What does it make you feel when you teach and students accomplish?
It makes me feel really happy for them, and I feel like I had no part of it, that it was all their doing, and I was just part of their journey, but it was all their hard work and their dedication, and more like, oh well, I'm glad that they were in my life for that moment.
Yeah, but you must acknowledge the fact that you tickled them a little bit.
Well, I always, like, I take no credit for, like, let's say Tom Monda of the band Thank You Scientist. They're one of my favorite bands, and that guy is a genius and an incredible guitar player, on the fretless too, and a wonderful guy. And yeah, I gave him some lessons when he was younger, but I take no credit for trying to think of I'm having a brain fart, the word. I take
the outcome of their musical career, or I don't know.
I take no credit for the genius musician that he is, because that is all his doing, and it's his thinking and his sweat and his hard work and his digging deep that made it happen.
I mean, I have to say, I have one student who I taught him on guitar for years, and then when it was finally time, he went to study music at one of Germany's biggest pop rock music schools, and I was very, very proud. Like, it's almost like you see, as if I had kids and the kid would do the first step, it's like, oh my God, this is so cool, because I've been with him when, I taught him all the funny songs, and we played AC/DC and all that. And then at one point, I remember he had a turning point. I mean, this podcast is called Everything But Music, but this is music right now. But I said it's going to sneak in. I remember I introduced Richie Kotzen to him, and that changed his entire playing. Out of a sudden, he was no longer this little guy who played covers of rock songs. Out of a sudden, he's like, oh, this is tone. This is how you play. This is how you phrase. This is how you speak with your instrument. And it was so beautiful to see him go on his journey and study music. Another student of mine, for example, got a scholarship for Berkeley. I could have not been prouder. And for me, it's really like seeing these little beans grow.
It's like you show them, like you point them in the direction, but they're the ones that take the journey and do the work. And
Absolutely.
And it's just great to see them doing it.
So you're teaching as well, like I do, and I'm gonna teach more this year. Actually, I'm starting next Monday again at my music school, which is very exciting for me because I've always loved to teach. Do you feel like students in general changed over the years?
The only thing that has changed is the tools they have. Like in the 80s, there was, there were guitar magazines and some tabs and stuff.
And now there's
when
YouTube.
you learned songs, there was, like you had to listen to 3 seconds of a cassette and retain the sound in your head and then match it to your instrument to learn a song and then figure out the physicality of it all. So there was the, dropping the needle and learning that way. Now it's all much
available. Everything is so available.
Available.
But the question is now that information is so much more available due to the internet. I mean, I grew up without internet and you did too. So growing up with this technique of internet and everything is so available. The question is, does that change your character or your approach to learning or your appreciation for information, or I don't know.
I've been teaching for, this year will be 40 years.
You're old. I love
you.
Well,
I started teaching at 13. And at that
12.
point I was studying, academic stuff for 7 years, 7 years. And I was real deep into it. So I was able to at least teach what I knew at that point. And what I find is that it's kind of the same, where you can teach anybody anything, but until they put it to use, it means nothing. So you could teach people tons of shit about the mathematics of music and how it all works and the laws of nature and sound and everything and applying it to guitar, but until they actually use it and start doing things with it, it doesn't really make sense. You could teach them modes and viewing it from different angles. It's like, this is like playing in a key, but just prioritizing a different note. But it's also like altering its own, diatonic major scale where you're flattening this and flattening that.
Ron,
and the mood of it,
music.
Everything but music. Well, yeah.
But
I'm just saying,
this
is more about teaching. Like, okay, you can tell them that.
Yes.
Doesn't mean shit until the person starts experimenting with it
and using the knowledge.
Yeah.
But here's the question. So when I started recording, I was probably 8-9 years old when I wrote my first songs, and we spoke about our first songs that we wrote. Mine was called "I Love My Guitar," and I sang it to you. I know you know the song, and yours was the Sweet cover, right?
Oh, yeah,
the Jupiter thing.
Jupiter is nice.
So when we started recording, what was your? This is gear talk, music talk. Anyway, everything but music. But I recorded on a Fostex 4-track, and it had the cassette. And the thing is, what I like to bring up when it comes to how minds of people have changed, or students have changed by now, is when I recorded, there was this pitch button. It says pitch, and as a child, I had no clue what's the meaning of the word pitch. And then I would twist that knob, and as soon as I moved it to the left, the cassette would spin slower. The sound would go right, and I would physically understand what this is doing. Nowadays, these kids grow up with GarageBand in the worst case, and now they have Pro Tools, Cubase, Logic, all that, and there's just this electronic button that you push. So the actual analog understanding of what's physically going on to create this, let's call it an effect, right, is no longer there. So that might change the way people approach things.
Yeah, if the gear is less physical, hands-on, right in front of you, you see what it's doing, you see heads slowing down as they turn. But now a lot of times this digital gear will have the image of it doing that as part of its interface. Yeah, the toys change. The toys get more interesting, but still how you learn and how you use it, I find, has always been the same. Because we're the same little apes.
It's just, I just, I just feel like all this white noise and all this available information, and it's just different to be a young person these days than compared to how when we were young. You know, it's just been.
Yeah. And they'll be saying the same exact thing in 20 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I don't want to dive into this topic, but we spoke about NFTs, and I really, I try. I don't want to. I don't want to be this old person not getting the youth. You know, it's like not understanding what they're talking about. I really try, but the thing is that I feel like maybe my generation is just too old to understand the value of digital things.
See, this cracks me up because you're saying my generation. You're what, 15 years younger than me? Or?
I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 53.
53. Yeah, I'm turning 40 next year.
So to hear that, it's like, oh, I'm too old to understand this. It's like, what are you talking about?
But you're way more into that NFT thing. It's not that I don't understand what an NFT, a non-fungible token, is. I do get it.
You just don't understand why it has value.
Exactly.
It doesn't. Nothing has value other than someone says it does and other people believe it. Yeah, and it's also about scarcity. And it's about that kind of stuff. You know, why is a diamond worth anything? Why is gold worth something?
I guess I had this discussion actually with my parents once. I was like, who was the human define that gold is worth a lot? And then it all came down to the fact that if you have something that is rare, it's just rare.
Well,
That's why it's valuable.
It plays on our interest in things that are rare and that you can get. So,
and that's all down to like feeling like if I get something that's worth a lot, I'm being materialistic, and then it's worth a lot because I have it.
Why is
it's so stupid.
Let's say there's a guitar that only 10 of them were made in 1 year of guitar. If you get that, it's going to be worth more money than something that 10,000 were made. But it's all just the value is imaginary. The value of $1, the value of everything, it's all based on just collective humanity deciding or agreeing or accepting that something has value. My farm grows corn. Your farm grows wheat. So for you, corn is valuable. For me,
why do I have to
valuable.
Stick with the wheat?
Okay, you have corn, I have wheat. Okay. So for me, corn is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you can sell it and get lots of wheat from me.
What I do not understand about the NFT thing is, if I can literally sit here where I sit right now and I can take 100 pictures of my surrounding, like I'm going to take a picture of the screen of what I'm looking at right now. I'm going to take a picture of my microphone. I'm going to take a picture of the wall, and everything can be turned into a non-fungible token. Right. What's the value there?
Well, when Monet and Picasso painted a bunch of pictures and I'm going to make 100 pictures. What makes those valuable? Exactly.
Good point.
And that's the thing. They're not.
But okay,
except
stop.
We decide that they are.
No, but the thing is, a Monet or a Picasso, they would invest heart, soul, sweat, time, and actual craft and skills.
Taking those pictures and making sure the framing was right.
That doesn't take any skills to hold up my stupid iPhone and take a picture of the wall. But I would
say that your iPhone pictures are comparable to any Picasso painting.
Oh my goodness. But I don't know. I'm gonna sit still, observe this whole NFT business and the
The future, yes. Web3.
Is that the future? I mean, really?
It is. Yeah.
Scary.
It's part of the future.
But then again, is it me being an old fart being scared of that? Because I don't really see. I feel like it's way more important to grab your best friends and go for a walk with a dog and enjoy the sunshine instead of like sitting all alone at home, eat unhealthy fast food and just stare at a screen or have one of these binoculars on and live in a digital world.
You just described the life of a music producer. Eating unhealthy food, staring at a screen all day in a room.
Oh my goodness.
I guess we need a balance then. We need to step away from the screen, get outside, and enjoy real life. And
how do you do that? How do you get the balance if the younger generations are being sucked into social media because of validation and stuff?
I have faith that they are going to find the balance. Because as the digital world becomes so normal, when I grew up, there was no digital world.
Yeah, totally.
And for people that are born into it, they can find balance. They're going to be like, you know what, I want to go outside and go for a walk in the park. And then I would think that hope. Every person will listen to themselves. And
this is a beautiful statement for the end of this podcast, because I think we spoke way longer than I expected us to talk.
Here's the thing that we all need to keep in mind. And actually, you know what? I won't even say it because it's going to be such a depressing end. So I'm going to leave it out. It had to do with
I'm a giant Schopenhauer fan. Like, he's my favorite philosopher. So, yeah, go for it.
We are in the midst of our 6th mass extinction event on this planet.
Right.
I'm trying to.
And it's not over.
But the things that we think are so damn important
are not.
They will be long forgotten, and they will not matter. And this whole digital world we have, when it's frozen under ice and all the zeros and the ones have disappeared, there will be no sign that any of it was ever there. So with that in mind, all you really have is this very moment.
The here and now.
Yeah. And you can spend it worrying about things or just killing yourself trying to accomplish things that after the extinction event really won't matter that much. Or you can just take a break and go outside and treat yourself and be good to yourself and just have some peace. I guess the point I'm making is don't deny yourself peace, inner peace. Be good to yourself. You're not taking anything away from what you're trying to give to the world and what you're trying to achieve while you're here by doing that. If anything, you need to keep that as part of the equation in everything that you're doing. Be good to yourself right now.
I love that. Ron, that's all the time we have. I thank you so much for being part of my first episode of my podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening and tuning in for this podcast. Please let me know in the comment section. Is that thumbs up, thumbs down? What's the deal? Yeah. And let me know who you would love to see me have a podcast episode with. Earlier this morning, somebody suggested Steve Vai.
Now, that would be some interesting stuff.
My brain hurts only from imagining talking to Steve.
If you want some real good philosophy.
I know. I love him to the moon and back. He's fantastic. So, well, we'll see. Maybe in the future. Ron, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day, okay? Carry sunshine in your heart.
You too. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.